Hey there, welcome back to another review. This time it is of a post-apocalyptic dark comedy. Um, and I really would not call it much of a comedy. From the 70s, A Boy and His Dog. A rather kinky tale of survival. Now, I wouldn't even call this that kinky. Um, in that department, it's pretty tame. There is some nudity, but it doesn't even seem like it even wants to go all the way with it. There's a certain scene where it just tries to hide as much of it as it can, with a bunch of uh, cobwebs that are placed there to cover up the naughty bits. And this is a film that apparently inspired the game Fallout. Unlike a lot of other people, I've never actually played that game, so I can't really say much about that. This particular DVD is not the best. It has some pretty crappy picture quality. Um, does not hold up that well. There's a Blu-ray that came out recently, but after watching this movie, I'm fine with not having it. In fact, I'll probably, I don't know, maybe I might keep this for the collection, but I just I just wasn't a fan of this movie. I got to be honest. I know it has a cult following. Uh, I don't get it, but to each their own. I didn't find it particularly that funny. I didn't find it that entertaining. I didn't find it to be really that good of a movie. I personally felt that it was a waste of a decent concept. I don't mind a dark comedy with a post-apocalyptic bent or something, and I like the idea of a boy and his dog wandering through the wasteland and trying to survive. And I like the fact that they have a snarky sort of attitude, and I admire the balls that the film has. It's a pretty ballsy film, especially for the time. But it's just not a very entertaining film to watch. It's fairly dull. It's really boring. A lot of it's just dialogue. The action sequences aren't much to write home about. And before I forget, the only reason why I watched this is because it was a request from my cousin. So thank you, cuz. Thanks for recommending this one. I gave it a shot, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. Um, it was worth a watch for a few things, but I'm definitely not gonna watch this again. I don't have any desire to watch it again. The film's most crippling flaw is its story, or lack thereof. The first 50 minutes of the movie are just Don Johnson and his dog wandering around the post apocalyptic wasteland in search of a woman that Don Johnson can fuck. That's all it is. Don Johnson is rearing to fuck. He wants to bang a girl. The dog is able to, I guess, sense girls or women or something in this particular story. So he uses the dog to search for a woman so Don Johnson can get his dick wet. That's all the fucking most of the movie is. It's 50 minutes of Don Johnson just having blue balls and then eventually just finding some girl and banging her in a vent somewhere. That's all it fucking is. I mean, there's nothing else to it. There's a few other bits of drama here, like, the only really thing is, though, trying to find the woman that Don Johnson can bang. And, I mean, you ain't got no game if you need a fucking psychic dog to be able to find a girl for you to shag. Come on, man. That's another problem. But anyway, I could not believe what I was watching. And to make things even more awkward, I was watching this with my parents. And they were like just as puzzled as I was. I don't think either of them enjoyed it, especially my stepfather. After it was over, I said, I didn't really care for it, but I guess it was okay at best. And he's like, it was all right. He's like, what do you mean it was all right? And he was really, ooh, this film really got to him. Um, but I can't even say it was all right at the end of the day. Like, I've already forgotten about most of the movie, to be honest. The last 20, 30 minutes or so are just Don Johnson gets double crossed by the girl that he decided to bang, which he was going to bang her at gunpoint. He was going to rape her. He was going to rape her at gunpoint, and then something happened in the story that distracted him. I think there were some people that were trying to invade the stronghold or something, and that's the one little action sequence there was. And then eventually she's the one that comes on to him, and then they do it. They do the nasty, and then she ends up double crossing him, and he ends up getting captured by this he goes underground to try to look for the girl like a fool, and he gets captured, and it was all part of her plan because she was a part of this underground cult that still thinks I guess it's Topeka, Kansas, and they all wear clown makeup, and Jason Robards is the leader of this group of cult members or something. He's the leader of this community, and his daughter is the girl that Don Johnson's character was betrayed by. And then by the end of the movie, she betrays him again, and because of that, well, not necessarily, she tries to go with him back to the surface because things aren't going to go the way she planned, because she wanted to use Don Johnson so she could take over the cult. Don is like, fuck that, I want to go see my dog, I don't care. And then the movie ends with just this extremely harsh ending where Don Johnson kills the girl and apparently roasts her, and then he feeds on her flesh and then feeds the rest of her to his dog so his dog can recover, because his dog's been waiting out there in the desert without any food for days. And that's the end of the movie. It's just the dog gets a nice meal of human flesh, and Don Johnson is a cannibal. It's just, what the fuck? Part of me, I admire the balls there. Like I said, I do it. I give it some kudos for that, but it just sums up how unlikable these main characters are. They're supposed to be unlikable. Yeah, well, it doesn't really help. Okay, they bicker at each other all the time throughout the entire running time. They don't really have that many likable qualities. I mean, the dog is an asshole. Don Johnson is an asshole. It's like the girl is a total bitch. Why should I care about anybody in this movie? It's one of those things that I guess that's the point, because in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, everybody's out for themselves and everybody's an asshole, but it just doesn't make for a very engaging or a worthwhile experience. The film is also flatly directed by L.Q. Jones. There's really not much to his direction. It's pedestrian at best, and god-awful at worst. It really does look like the efforts of some first-time amateur director, or some guy who only directed a few episodes of a TV show and then was handed a feature film. Apparently he also produced it, and he wrote it. It's based on a story of the same name by Harlan Ellison, who has done a lot of well-known science fiction stories. I don't think this is one of them. It stars a very young Don Johnson as Vic, the boy. Tim McIntire plays the voice of the dog, Blood. He also sings a song, a country sort of theme song at the end credits. Susanne Benton plays Quilla June Holmes, who is the girl who shags up with Don Johnson, then uses him, and then wants to still be on his side, and then she gets eaten by Don Johnson and Don's dog. Jason Robards plays her father, Lou Craddock. And these performances, they're there, but the direction isn't really getting a lot out of them, and the script isn't really full of a lot of dialogue that is particularly that funny, that witty, that memorable. I mean, the most chuckle-worthy scene is when the dog is just telling Don Johnson he's a putz. That's it. Other than that, I don't get the praise for its black comedy or for its humor. I didn't really see that much of it. For For the most part, there really isn't a lot of comedy or humor to be found in this movie, unless you think anti-humor is funny. When I know a lot of people do, so maybe that's why they like this movie, is because it's an anti-humor film before anti-humor was a thing. But it's just one of those films that there's really not much to say about it. I know this isn't this. I mean, you're like, wow, like you might set a record for the shortest reviews. Well, yeah, because not much happens. 50 minutes is just Don Johnson and his dog looking for a woman to fuck. That's all it is. It's 50 minutes of that happening. There's another like 5 minutes of them just watching some old porno reel. And then stealing food and stuff from other scavengers and just wandering around the fucking desert. There's even elements to this that are interesting that they do nothing with. Like there's these mutated radioactive creatures or humanoids called the Screamers, and you never see them because the budget was too low and they couldn't show them on screen or something. So that's a missed opportunity. They keep mentioning these Screamers, and it seems like there might be some potential with that for a decent action sequence or some suspense or some horror, but they never do anything with it. All you see is just some glowing green light, and that's it. And some laughable screaming. It sounds more like moaning than screaming. I mean, really. The screaming in this from the Screamers sounds like this. Oh! Sounds like somebody's doing an imitation of a fucking ambulance. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound really that much like screaming to me. I mean, that's kind of how I felt after this movie was over. I'm just like, ah! What the fuck did I just watch? Ah! But really, I have not been this puzzled after a movie was over in a long time. So, give the film a little credit for that. I mean, to be honest, I've seen worse. I have seen worse films than A Boy and His Dog, but that's not saying much. Okay, it's not as bad as some of the worst films I've ever seen. That doesn't mean it's good. That doesn't mean it's a good movie. It doesn't mean it's a film that I enjoyed or I thought was really that great or anything. Because it isn't. It also has some absolutely atrocious sound design. The sound design in this is so awful that it's kind of hard to understand. It's not kind of, it is hard to understand some dialogue, and maybe it's the print that was used for this transfer or something, but it's just terrible. And it doesn't even have really a good score to help things or anything like that. I would say the production and art design of the post-apocalyptic wasteland, that was decent for a low budget. But the music by Tim McIntire, Ray Manzarek, Jamie Mendoza nada means nada to me. Cinematography by John Arthur Morrill. What cinematography? Scott Conrad, who edited it. The editing is, I guess, average. It's there, but it's nothing amazing or anything. The climax is weak. Don Johnson gets captured and he's turned into a living sperm bank for the underground cult, and he gets out of that because the girl that betrayed him earlier, Quilla, she decides to save him because she wants to use him for her gain still, and then they get in a little scuffle with a robot who's dressed up like a farmer and dies in a very laughable way. And I guess that's the point, because it's kind of like a slapsticky sort of thing, but I just thought it was goofy and not particularly that funny. And it reminded me of the type of stuff I saw in Heart Beeps. I don't know if you remember that movie. A lot of people haven't, and for good reason, because Heart Beeps is a movie that might as well be a cinematic flatline. There's no heart beeping in Heart Beeps because it's dead on arrival. But and then the boy, Vic, played by Don Johnson, it gets to the surface of the girl. There's a bit of blood in that scene with the robot because the robot goes around and kills some people. But it's not much of anything. It's just like crushing their heads, and there's a little bit of fake blood that comes out. That's it. Not much of anything. Um, it also doesn't explain certain things. So it explains how the post-apocalyptic landscape came to be. There was World War Three or something. Well, actually, it was World War Four. They skipped World War Three. World War Four happened in. It started from like 1953 to 1983 or something. Then 5 years later, everybody launched their nuclear missiles and caused the apocalypse. This takes place in 2024, and as the tagline says, a future you'll probably live to see. I hope I don't live to see this future. I really do, because this future sucks. But I don't think I mean, really, I hope nobody has to live to see this future, because really it is a bleak and shitty future, and it fits for a bleak and fairly shitty film. But anyway, so yeah, they explain that, how the post-apocalyptic landscape came to be, but they don't explain things like how Don Johnson is able to communicate with his dog. It's just like, there was some police dogs, and that's basically it. They don't explain how the connection is made, or what's going on, why he can speak to his dog, or why his dog can speak to him psychically and understand what he's saying, but other people can't. It doesn't explain that. It doesn't really give you that much explanations about the underground cult. Why are they there? Why do they do that? What's going on here? Why is it called Topeka? It's no explanations for it whatsoever. Like, how do they have grass and trees and stuff underground? No explanation for any of it. This makes Waterworld look coherent in comparison. I mean, Waterworld isn't really that complex of a plot, but really, it's just one of those things that's like, this is one of the least coherent post-apocalyptic films I think I've ever seen. It's like they just threw a bunch of random shit at the wall and hoped it sticked. Hope it stuck. And it stunk instead of stuck. So I really don't know what else to say about the film, except if you enjoy the movie, and I know there's a good amount of people that do, I have no issue with that. All I have to say is to each their own. I'm not going to judge you for liking the movie or enjoying it or think it is a cult classic, but I just couldn't get into it. I just thought A Boy and His Dog was just a bland, boring, dull, lame movie where just the majority of the running time is just dedicated to John Johnson and his quest to bone. That's really it. His quest to bone some girl. He wanted to bone a girl. This should just be called Don and His Dog and Their Quest for Sex. or Don and his dog search for a girl to fuck. Like, it's just one of those things. It's A Boy and His Dog. That's only putting it. That's not really. I mean, technically, it is about a boy and his dog, but you're leaving out the search, the quest for copulation in that title. I understand. Yeah, it's called A Kinky Tale of Survival, but I mean, regardless, it's like, why did they think that was going to be a good idea for a movie? Like, even as a porno, that would be a pretty weak plot. And unlike a porno, you don't get that much TNA. It's a kinky tale of survival that hides the boobs and hides the other shit and hides the goods and doesn't deliver that aspect. It doesn't deliver the goods on the entertainment front. It doesn't deliver the goods with an action standpoint. It doesn't deliver the goods with an engaging story. Like, what does A Boy and His Dog offer you? Other than just some insufferable characters. Even the dog is unlikable. I would have been fine if the dog got ran over or died in the desert. Vic is just a very one note character. He's just there to bicker with his dog and then just get ready to bang. Really, he's just bicker with his dog and be horny. That's it. And the same thing applies for most of everyone else in this movie. Um, so yeah, I don't know what else to say about A Boy and His Dog. I've said all there is to say, and I don't know what else I can offer when it comes to talking about this movie other than rating out of 4 stars. I give it 1.5 out of 4. I mean 1.5 out of 5 because I don't do out of 4. 1.5 out of 5 because Don Johnson was okay, but the character was poorly written. The concept of the boy and the dog going through the wasteland, I didn't mind. I also didn't mind the whole psychic link thing. The steel gigantic balls the film had for the time. I do give it some credit for that. But and the production and art design. But other than that, that's it. That's all the praise I have for A Boy and His Dog. For the most part, the rest of the film is one giant con, and I definitely do not recommend the movie unless you're extremely curious about it or you are a die-hard Don Johnson fan, and you must see every single film that stars Don Johnson. Um, who he might as well be called Dong Johnson in this movie because he's thinking with his dong throughout the entire film. But anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you later. See ya.